Rahul Gandhi amazes me. Want to know why? Welcome. There was a time, about 20 years ago, if you want to know the approximate timeline, when I thought that Rahul Gandhi was not fit for politics. Like everybody else, I thought that politics was a domain for the pragmatists, for those who are willing to shortchange ideals, willing to resort to unscrupulous methods, and to go entirely by expediency rather than consistent commitment to fundamental truths, values, and ideals. So I thought that this young man, whose goodness was never in doubt as far as I was concerned, was unfit for the moral jungle that politics was assumed to be. And therefore, I naturally assumed that his future was bleak and he will be only a temporary phenomenon on the landscape of Indian politics. And I expressed that view in at least half a dozen articles that I published over a period of time, articles on Rahul Gandhi. But as of today, from that early stage of skepticism concerning his eligibility to enter and endure politics, I've reached a stage of unqualified, may I even say unlimited admiration. And I must tell you why. Principally for two reasons. We'll concentrate only on two reasons. One, because of my personal experience of a particular reality. And therefore, please bear with me when I share with you some of my own biographical detail. After I took over as principal of St. Stephen's College in 2007, when it was found that my passionate commitment was to integrating social justice with pursuit of excellence in higher education, I came under heavy attack from the vested interests who thought they had a kind of unwritten entitlement on St. Stephen's College. Obviously, they were members of the social, economic, political elite in this country who believes that all the good things in this country must be reserved for their children on the main plank that their children grew up in privilege and therefore they have an entitlement to all privileges in the world, and being born into the elite context is the greatest merit. So, as the Supreme Court of India says or insists that merit must be the sole guiding criterion, members of this sort of tiny privileged bloc would say, yes, our children have all the merit in the world. What's the merit? That they're the children of the elite, that they are elite children. So we have a birthright. And they thought, and they came to the conclusion, and quite rightly too, that my assuming office and remaining there was a serious problem for them because their children would not have backdoor entries. So an orchestrated campaign was unleashed on me. And one of the main strategies in that attack, which lasted several years, was the most baseless calumny that I was not qualified. Even if I am saying this to you today, no one can on factual grounds doubt or debate that I was the 12th principal of the college. None of the principals before me had the claims and titles to distinction that I had. On the intellectual level, I had already authored 17 books. And I I was an acclaimed translator into English. I was awarded the Best Translator Award from all Indian languages into English in 2009, 2010. But that fact was uh, blacked out by the media. I was a member of the faculty in St. Stephen's College. I headed the English department. I had served as a small period of time as the vice principal of the college. I was one of the most distinguished students St. Stephen's produced in English literature. Beyond that, I had proved myself at the national level. I was a founder member of Delhi Minorities Commission and continued into the next two commissions. Then I was appointed to the National Commission for Minority Education Institutions. I was one of the three founding members. I was nominated twice to the National Integration Council under the category of Distinguished Citizens of India. I had served as the vice chairman of the governing body of Christian Medical College, Vellore. I had served as a resource person for innumerable national and international seminars and conferences, including seminars on medical subjects like HIV/AIDS. I was a delegate to United Nations organization on the very first consultation on the spiritual perspectives on peace. I was invited to the third PrepCom of United Nations on sustainable development, and I attended two meetings in Bali, Indonesia, so on and so forth. Yet, I was daily ridiculed as a nitwit, as incompetent, as a misguided priest who cannot do justice to the duties and the responsibilities comprehended in the office of the principal of St. Stephen's College. But under my leadership, the college did exceedingly well, and it was recognized as the best college in India among 39,000 colleges. And believe you me, not a single newspaper reported it. Even when the college attained the pinnacle of national acclaim under my leadership, the vilification campaign continued. And therefore, a vast majority of people in this country believed that I was an idiot. So it's from personal experience that I'm speaking with you. And I know how hard I had to fight to protect myself from this venom of self-doubt that was welling up from within myself when I was subjected to this relentless campaign of vilification mounted on me from all directions. You have to go through a situation like that to realize how hard it is to maintain one's morale in a situation like this. So I know what it means to go through a situation like this in personal. But think of Rahul Gandhi. I was limited to a very small college. Here is a young man who enters this jungle of politics and becomes immediately a target. 1,000 bloodhounds pouncing upon him. And he being told, and the nation being told, that he's a pappu, he's a pappu, he's a pappu. Now, there is a saying, a psychological saying, that call a man a fool 10 times and he'll become one. Because of the power of words, the power of opinion. Human beings being social creatures, what others say about you has a huge impact on you, for better, for worse. And I really feared that this young man would collapse under the burden of the sustained campaign of vilification mounted on him. But it amazes me today when I look back and realize that he endured it all. And he endured it all with tremendous and astonishing dignity. He never tried to defend himself. He never tried to lock horns with them. He never tried to pay back in the same coin. He simply pursued his mission. That is amazing maturity, wisdom, and above all, invaluable, matchless personal culture, personal dignity, and character strength. I challenge you to find out just one person in the camp that was vilifying him who would have survived 2 days if the same amount of vilification was mounted against that person. Or, I don't want to sort of say anything negative about anybody, but factually, why is it that mentioning anything critical of Sri Narendra Modi is considered anti-national? Because labeling something as anti-national is the most effective way of suppressing it. Why should or why is it necessary to suppress any criticism of Narendra Modi? Because he can't stand it. I cannot resist the thought that perhaps he is not strong enough to handle criticism with dignity and grace. This young man has it. Is it a small thing, do you think? So it amazes me really that he endured that period of sustained vilification, the like of which no one else in the political history of India post-independence has ever undergone. So he has been tested and proved in the fire of this vilification, and he has emerged bright and shining, I would say glorious. I salute him for that, because I know what it means to go through such an experience. Unless and until you have unimaginable inner strength, you cannot endure and survive this process. And his detractors used to say that he'll run away from politics, he's only a half-time politician, etc., because that was exactly what they wanted. They thought that intimidated by this orchestrated campaign of vilification, which nobody really can stand and survive, this man will run away for life. So they projected that desire onto him and said that he's not consistent, he's not serious, he's a part-time politician, he comes and goes. And this was said about Rahul Gandhi not because the BJP wanted him to be seriously engaged with the political process in this country, but that they wanted him to run away from it. So he has weathered it all. Amazing, amazing. That's the first part. The second part. Now, before I go into the second part, I have to give you a little historical perspective on this. And that is, my background as a student of literature enables me to understand the power of ridicule. In literature, ridicule is used very powerfully. In fact, the most powerful weapon of attack, what's called the rhetoric of attack. The rhetoric of attack. And the prime exemplar of the rhetoric of attack is Sri Narendra Modi. No one has perfected the art of the rhetoric of attack as much as Modi ji has done. So I salute him for that. That is rhetorical ability, his ability as an orator. He can destroy you with one speech, as no one else can in this country. But all that was mounted on and mounted against Rahul Gandhi, and it had very little effect. That's something great. So now this ridicule. When you want to physically eliminate a man, you use the sword against him, or physical violence, maybe bullets or whatever. When you want to destroy a man from the affection of the people, you can't use a sword, you have to use ridicule. And therefore, ridicule is in the long run far more destructive, far more effective than the sword or the bullet. That is the seriousness with which you have to look at this phenomenon. If you look at history, when one order had to be thrown out, torn apart, and another put in place, the main weapon used was ridicule. The representatives of the old order were ridiculed, as indeed in France, in the run-up to the 1789 revolution, the French Revolution, which marks a watershed moment in the history of Europe as a whole, in fact of humanity as a whole, Because after all, in the preamble to the Indian Constitution, liberty, equality, fraternity, besides justice, is from the French Revolution. So in the run-up to the French Revolution, if you read the literature of the times, you will find that the major weapon used against the parasites of the old system was ridicule. Ridicule. Or look at that gigantic piece of literary work, Don Quixote by Cervantes. Now, that's a Spanish work. Quixote. If you want, the Spanish pronunciation is Quixote. If you want to stick to the English pronunciation, it is Quixote. Quixote. But in the literary context, we use the Spanish pronunciation rather than the English pronunciation. Now, Cervantes wrote that work, which is unrivaled to this day, to mark the transition from the age of chivalry to the age of materialism. So it's a work of transition. And Cervantes uses ridicule, a very, very gentle ridicule, at the same time gentle and powerful, in order to expose the pretensions and illusions and delusions of the old system. This is not the time for me to go into details. It's an amazing work. I made my elder daughter read this work. It's a substantial work when she was in standard 9. And once she got started, she couldn't stop it. So it's a fascinating piece of work. Of course, at that time, she was not able to understand its literary subtleties and nuances, but the story value of it gripped her. Anyhow, so the historical literary power of ridicule as a weapon of attack. And this was used so effectively, so brutally, so massively against Rahul Gandhi. But all of that attack failed to destroy him. Amazing, amazing. There is none like that in our living history. Why would I not admire him? The second point of admiration. You enter any domain. Let's not talk about politics now. Let's talk about sports and games. You want to be a cricketer, let's say. Cricket is India's religion, India's madness. I don't know why. It's such a boring game. Never mind. And you think you are a great batsman, okay? And you present yourself to the selectors, and the selectors are not particularly convinced, but you seem so passionate about cricket. And one of the selectors says, yes, let's give this young man a chance. So they give you a chance. And you come onto the field with all your kit, your bat, and all the rest of it, and you stand there, one opening ball, you are clean bowled. And you walk back licking your wounds. The next match, the selectors are a bit suspicious, doubtful about your ability, but they say, okay, let's give him one more chance. After all, a young fellow. It's not fair that we judge him on a single failure. So you get a second chance. The same thing happens. Skepticism about your talent begins to grow. You get a third chance and you score 5 runs. And disappointment intensifies. You get a 4th, 5th, 6th chance. You score 7, 11, 0, 3. What happens? You will not be able to stand it. The selectors don't have to junk you. You will run away from there. It's hard to face chronic failure. The test of a man's character, I tell you, is not how he deals with success, acclaim, popularity, acceptance. The real test of a man's character is how he deals with failures and to what effect, to what end. Now, think of Rahul Gandhi. The media went berserk about the Congress party imploding under his leadership. Why? Because the party lost elections one after the other. In between, of course, there were bright patches like assembly elections, including Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan. But all that was discounted, and Rahul Gandhi was projected by the media as well as the BJP as the assured destruction of the Congress party. Even a well meaning journalist, a balanced journalist like Rajdeep Sardeshai said that the Congress will have no future if it does not dealing itself from the Nehru Gandhi dynasty, and it must look for alternate sources of leadership. Why? Because in the popular psychology that governs us today, a person's merit, a person's worth is judged only in terms of successes. Whereas history proves us, experience tells us that how a person copes with defeats really reveals the mettle of his character and his personal stature. When you enter a contest, you only have maximum 50% chance of success. Now, you can enlarge that 50% to 60%, 70%, as the case may be. But when you work with a large party, unless and until that party has an effective organizational mechanism, which the Congress so woefully lacks, even today, the Congress is so weak. The contrast between the BJP and the Congress is not the contrast between Shri Narendra Modi and Rahul Gandhi. It's a false binary. The real contrast between the BJP and the Congress is that the BJP is a party of incredibly efficient organizational structures, systems, and cadres, whereas the Congress lacks all of that. All of that. Let me give you an example, very simple example. In one of my conversations with Sonia Gandhi, Sonia ji, I used to call her Sonia ji, I told her that the Congress badly needed a think tank. I was a member of the think tank established by I.K. Gujral. B.G. Verghese was also a member. The retired Chief Justice of India, Justice Abidi, was also a member. Naqvi, the very senior journalist, was also a member of that group. So I realized how valuable I think it is to have a think tank to consider contemporary events and to understand, interpret, so that a stand can be formed based on an adequate, mature, intellectually valid understanding of any given situation. We used to meet religiously once a fortnight. So, encouraged by that experience, when I next met Sonia ji, I told her the Congress party needs a think tank. She said, "Yes, you're right. I will do it," she said. So she immediately contacted Sri Jairam Ramesh. And in my presence, she talked with Jairam Ramesh and said, "Please constitute a think tank." And Dr. Manmohan Singh, who subsequently became the Prime Minister of India for 2 terms, was also a member of that think tank. We met only twice, only twice. Then it fizzled out. I'm just citing one example to prove how organizationally weak this party is. How did the party win? The party won because of the charisma of the Nehru Gandhi dynasty. That's the reason why the BJP turns all its hostile attention to the dynasty and makes the people of India believe that the curse of India is Nehru Gandhi dynasty. It is not the curse of India, it's a curse of the BJP. So Rahul failed and failed and failed. The Congress parties got diminished in stature, in numbers, and in its footprints around the country, not because Rahul Gandhi was incompetent, but because the party was so poorly, so miserably organized. It had no organizational metal or stuff worth talking about. Everything depended on the charisma of a family, and that family was under consistent attack. And millions in this country were being convinced that members of the family are all idiots, or they are unfaithful to the country, they're aliens, and it's wrong and dangerous to trust them. And here's a young man who has inherited that mantle and who has to deliver and deliver against an extremely, radically, dramatically changed context. See, neither Indira Gandhi nor Rajiv Gandhi, not even Sonia Gandhi, had to face the kind of organizational might and the money strength and the media support that the BJP managed to garner during Rahul's time. The odds were stacked heavily against him. So the man failed. And that failure was attributed entirely to his incompetence, his inadequacies. But now we know in retrospect that all that was a lie. It was not so. There is something great in this young man. Now, one of the good things about him is his spontaneity and his willingness to think out of the box. Let's think of that one moment in Parliament when Rahul made his debut speech, which rattled the Parliament, which rattled Modi ji. We were all witnesses to that. But having finished his address, what did he do? He did something that no other parliamentarian in the history of Indian democracy has done. He walked across the aisle and embraced Sri Narendra Modi ji, stunning him altogether. There is something to be said in favor of that. Anyway, what I want to emphasize is that I'm going to close. Rahul Gandhi has proved his mettle not only by enduring the storm of calumny that was unleashed against him through an orchestrated attempt to persuade the people of India to believe that he is a pappu, and nothing more than a pappu, and also by enduring the trial by fire of chronic failure, not on account of his demerits or inadequacies, but because of the inadequacy of a party, which he wanted to reform, restructure, but was not able to due to various reasons, which I shall not go into. So, the long and short of it is that I started as a skeptic in relation to the political potential of this young man. And today I am someone who feels excited about what he stands for and the good things that can emerge from him for the people of India. And I sincerely hope that a time would come when he will be able to pour out the inexhaustible goodness in him for the betterment of the people of India, and particularly for the poor, the marginalized, the forgotten millions. So, this is my personal confession that today I think of Rahul Gandhi not only with a great deal of hope, but an immeasurable degree of admiration bordering on respect. Jai Hind.